Welcome, amazing agents from across the country. Today is January 11th, 2017, and this is Mastermind call number 159. You can probably hear I'm kind of energized today. Just came back from a great conference with my partner Chad in up on towards the Gulf Coast of Florida. And one thing I don't think we've mentioned lately, we are kind of taking our show on the road this year. We're going to be virtually every month of the year. We're going to be somewhere. I think there's the month of March. We got 4 different places. We're going to the NAR conventions. We're doing some local conventions. So look at look at our calendar. Just go to alltheleads.com and look at the calendar. And if we're going to be in your area, we'd love to meet you face to face and put a face with the name of the people we talk to on the phone. As always, let's go around the horn with my partners. Tim, anything you'd like to share with the group this week?
I had just about the calendar. As we do that, we made a commitment at the end of last year that we're going to do a better job of communicating a lot of things, and this is one of the first things we attacked is to make sure that our own internal stuff is together. So we're making sure we keep that calendar up to date, and if there's anything wrong on it, you let us know. We'd certainly appreciate hearing about that. Other than that, I yield my time to the gentleman on the golf course, I think he said.
Gulf Coast.
Gulf Coast. So you guys bear with me. If the sound of the wave in the background annoy you, you're probably on the wrong call anyway. So I wanted to thank all of our new customers that we picked up this week at the Rural Working event. We met some really incredible agents from all over the country here in Florida. And also wanted to kind of share, so I've talked to a couple people in the last week, and Jim said before the recording started today, when people get successful, a lot of times we don't hear them back on this call. But I did speak to a couple subscribers today, one in particular. He's been with us for about 6 months. He's been in the industry for less than a year. And in probably the most competitive market in the United States, he's been able to do 15 transactions as a rookie agent in a market where we had 5 people fail, and we were almost convinced that the probate niche wouldn't work there. He's made over $500,000 in gross commission as a brand new agent in that red ocean. So for those of you that are new on the phone, I wish we could get our veterans here, but his biggest problem, he actually called to sign up for our ISA services because he has so many listings that he's servicing now, he doesn't have time to come to these calls. And we've talked to several people like that, so it's unfortunate. I'm going to try to meet up with him when I'm in Connect in a week or so, maybe capture some of that on video so you guys can actually hear it. But I just wanted to take a minute to kind of celebrate his success. He's doing incredibly well, and in a market where we had nobody succeed, and it's really because he follows the system. He did fast track training. He hasn't done mastery. He just did what he learned in fast track, and he's just very diligent about sending his letters and making sure that he follows up with a phone call. That's his edge. But he's gotten to a point now where he's not consistently making his calls, so it's important enough to him that he's hired us to do it for him. And we hear those stories all the time. But just some encouragement for those of you getting started. From a training wheelhouse, Probate Mastery has been scheduled. You guys should have saw an email, I think the day before yesterday I sent that out. I scheduled it for this coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's I believe the 15th, 16th, 17th, from 2 p.m. Eastern to 3 to 3:30-ish, each of the sessions we'll have. If you're not familiar with Probate Mastery, you can look in the subscriber report on our website. You can look under the Education and Training tab. So go to the system, the probate system, Education and Training, and there's a video there kind of explaining what Mastery is and why it exists, and of course curriculum below. It's only $250. We only teach it once a month, and it's a group training that we video record, and the recordings are sent out immediately following the session. So if you really want to take this serious and incorporate this into your business, we'd love to have you in Probate Mastery. We start on Monday afternoon.
Excellent. And Chad, just to follow up on what you were saying, I know you're referring to Seth. What's really interesting, we've got an agent in Florida that's never picked up the phone that's done 40 deals, and Seth was in such a competitive market. I talked to him shortly after he started, when he started to do so well, and I said, "What are you doing, Seth?" And he said, I realized he's doing what the other agents didn't. He said every single person he speaks to says, "I got 50 letters, but you're the only one that called me." So the other 4 that failed, this is a 3-pronged system. Get the leads, send a letter, follow up with a phone call. If you leave out any one of those 3, you're greatly reducing your chance of success. And Seth is willing to pick up the phone where the other 4 agents weren't. So, if you weren't on the last couple calls, we realized that is the failure point. Not making the calls was the failure point for too many agents. So we are now doing the calls for you if you like. And if you're not familiar with that, or you think you might be interested, just send an email to support@alltheleads.com and we'll get back to you. If you're not going to make your calls, let us do it for you. At least you're gonna have the best chance of success with the program. Tom, anything you'd like to add before we get to our callers?
Just to remind everybody that we're here to help, and as you mentioned, if you need anything, just send us an email to support@alltheleads.com, or if you're in your account area, under support, there's a contact us. Just be specific on the things that you're looking for, and we'll assign it to the appropriate people to get back to you as quickly as possible. That's it.
Excellent. Perfect. And I think we might have 100 people on this call. I haven't counted, which is great. Great attendance. We do have 2 people in the queue. We will go up to an hour on this call, and usually they run about that long. So we have plenty of room for other people. Just hit *6 and hit 1, and you'll be next up in the queue. There we go. Thank you. We got a couple more. And let's start with the phone number ending in 1472. You're up first.
Hello.
Hi, Amy. Is this Amy?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
This is Amy. Okay. I have a couple of questions.
Great.
The first one is I'm brand new with the system, and I've listened to a couple of the calls and some of the role plays and this and that, and very, very comfortable with prospecting. I've prospected my whole real estate career, so I have no fear for getting on the phone.
Great.
But I did find that when it's really funny, it like paralyzed me. When I noticed that the husband, it was either husband and wife, when I saw the same name at the same address, I realized it was either the spouse had, the husband had died or the wife had died. And that's when I was uncomfortable. And so I guess my question is, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, if I'm calling a personal representative that's not the husband or wife, I had no problem with it. But so I guess, is there any way of knowing, could the husband have just died? I guess maybe it would have helped me if I knew they died a year ago. If they just died a month ago, or helping me to, how do I, the same script just doesn't seem appropriate. I guess just help me through that.
Sure. Good question.
So you can actually see the date of death in your CRM. And
okay.
in the bottom right, in the court information, we have the date of death and the date of probate filing. If you notice, typically, the median number, usually it takes people 68 days to file probate. That's the kind of the median across the country. That's when, what tracking is. So sometimes a spouse will take longer. Sometimes it will be 6 months or more. I want to point you to, I did a series of videos called Tips from the Trainer, and we posted them on our blog. So if you go to alltheleads.com, and click blog in the menu, you can scroll down, and you'll have to go through a few posts, but there's one that says, should I call a surviving spouse? And I think it's probably an 11 or 12-minute video, because it's not the first time we've heard this question. And in that video, I tell the story of, why I never hesitate to call a surviving spouse. It's a personal story. It was actually the first probate deal I ever did. And I'll save that for the video. But what you have to consider is they have all the problems that exist in everyday life. They now have lost somebody that they dearly love. They have all the responsibility that comes with that, and now they only have half of the domestic coverage, I guess, for the lack of a better term. So think about maintenance, think about self-care, think about financials. A lot of times these surviving spouses are forced into doing something because they hadn't obviously planned for this. The reason probate is so prevalent is because most of us don't have an end-of-life plan. We will plan our businesses, we will plan our vacations, we plan things down to the damn second, but we don't plan to die, and that's the one definite thing that we're all going to experience. So oftentimes the surviving spouse is just completely blindsided by this. They're not prepared for it financially or emotionally or physically to take care of property. So in my professional opinion, those are the people that need my help the most. Now, something you said is the script needs to be different. I agree with that. You need to be, it's a more general conversation. You keep real estate out of it until you found out kind of what their state is and what their needs are and what their biggest challenges are. Don't call up and say, I'd like to sell your house, because that's a hugely emotional thing. But still, call up and find out if there's any way you can help me, and find out what the biggest stresses are and see. Because a lot of people, they haven't thought about what happens when spring rolls around and I have to take care of an acre of landscaping and lawn. What happens when the gutters need cleaned or this or that? And that spouse is the person doing it. And now they've lost half their income, and the person that was maintaining the property isn't maintaining the property. A lot of times they're forced into change. So if we can help them by aligning them with our senior moving companies, maybe our retirement community contacts, maybe getting them into a rental home or into a smaller, more suitable property. There's a lot of ways we can help, but it starts with just being empathetic and listening, and that starts with making contact with the surviving spouse. And I would say get yourself to a point where you really believe what I just said, and then you'll have the confidence, and you'll be proud to make that phone call. You're probably gonna, at some point you'll get somebody that's still deep in the grieving process, and you'll offend somebody, and just say, you know what, I know that I can help. That's why I reach out early. I understand your frustration, and I'll give you your space. And then just call them back in a month or two. The story that I told started out that way. A lady lost her husband. She called. I sent it because I pulled a list of high equity homes that had not transferred in the last 9 years, and she happened to be one of those. The house was, obviously they'd lived there for a long time and had to transfer. It just so happened her husband had passed away. It was before I even was gathering probate leads, and she told me she would never sell her house. She would die there. And around 80% of senior citizens plan to die in their home. But if you look at the nursing home community and the healthcare community and the healthcare business in this country, it just doesn't happen that way. We get surprised. Our plan changes real quick. So 2 months later, her daughter called me. She was a mess, and I was able to take the mountain and turn it into a molehill and make her a lot more money than she thought the home was worth, because the other agent had overpriced and undermarketed the house. So anyways, I'll digress, but I encourage you to just sit and think, why would this person need my help? And watch that video before you get back on the phone with them.
Right.
And the other thing I was going to add to that, familiarize yourself with your state, because in most areas there's a right of survivorship. So typically, if a husband and wife own the house together and one of them dies, they don't need to file a probate. Now, every state's different, and this may be a property that was owned prior to their marriage. And the other thing I was going to say, just because it's a last name, obviously it could be a child, it could be someone else who's living there that has the same last name, but it's not necessarily the spouse. But so just factor that all in, and like Chad said, look at the date of death if that makes you feel better. But reach out to them. I agree. They need their help. They need your help more than most. Does that help at all?
Yeah, definitely. Another really quick question. I'm in a highly competitive place, and realtors are calling the probate because the ones that I've I called for the first time, and the ones that I did reach told me that they've had, 30 phone calls. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and I expected that because I'm in Southern California, and that's just the way it is. When you call expired, they've had 100 phone calls, so this was
Okay,
30.
so that's a little
30
better.
was better than 100, and so,
Right.
and they are calling them here, definitely. And so I
Okay.
did try to separate myself with, about the services, to help them, and they said, oh yeah, we've had all that, the realtors are all telling us they have clean out services and this and that, and I was like, okay. So I just wondered if you had any other either suggestions on, like, do I call them the second that I get them, or just any way when it is a highly competitive place like this that people are calling and doing the same kind of thing, what you might recommend to
Make yourself different, right?
Right.
Yeah. Chad?
I'm trying to think outside of the box here for a second. So, do you do all your own phone calls, Gail?
Amy?
Or excuse me,
Amy.
Sorry.
Yes. I'm making my own calls. I just started. I just did it for the first time.
I was thinking of, like, how do you, if they're getting 30 phone calls, that's a lot. Probably going to be frustrated when they hear from you unless your offer is really different, right?
Right, exactly.
Where my mind was going is, can we have somebody survey people in your area to kind of feel out what they need? And what made me think of that, I'm actually writing a letter for you guys that will kind of have a check the box and send this back. A very different letter from what we send, because I spoke to someone else who had been doing probate for about 30 years, and they're sending a return envelope, a posted return envelope, saying, if you need help, please send this back to me. And it's actually pretty effective. They're getting about 2% of their list by doing that. So I was trying to think, how could we, on the phones, kind of accomplish the same thing? Hey, this is Amy from Southern California Probate Services. I just wanted to touch base and see if there's anything we could do to help you. Do you have time to answer a few questions? I don't know if it would work. I haven't tried that approach, but I think with that much phone pressure, anything's worth a shot. Aside from that idea, you may think about that and see if you can develop it into something you want to try. Aside from that, I would probably keep the conversation the same as we teach until the objection of, you know what, Amy, just stop. 30 people have called me.
Right.
And then I would use humor to kind of change their state, because that's probably going to be your most common objection, or, you know what, we got it handled. And I would do so you need to find things that are productive but also disruptive. So you need to find things that will kind of stop them in their tracks. An example that comes to mind is, a lot of probate homes are sitting uninsured because they've been vacant for more than 30 days, and the homeowner policy that they're paying for doesn't actually cover a vacant structure. So it's one example of how you can say, well, listen, I understand, and I know that there's a lot of people that are offering limited service. We're a full-service business. We have a lot of experience in the probate and the probate process. For example, have you guys switched the insurance on any real estate in the estate? And they're going to stop and go, well, what do you mean? And then that gives you an opening to start that conversation and differentiate yourself. There may be other examples when I'm not on the spot. If you want, we can kind of brainstorm and come up with. But think of things like that they probably haven't thought of, that they probably haven't dealt with. Another one might be, well, I actually called to talk to you about your own probate and why you shouldn't have that. Have you thought of that yet? And you'll have to try that on with your personality. But it's abrupt, but it can get their attention. One of the things we do is we make sure every client has a plan in place so their family never has to go through this again. Did the other 30 people mention that? I didn't think so. And you'll have to look at your culture and your personality and how abrupt you want to be. But I think that's the key to you kind of standing out and breaking through the noise, is find ways to kind of shock their system and be like, whoa, what did she just say? in a positive way. That's what I would say.
Okay, well, thank you. And one more, just a quick question. One of them that I called said that they said that they had a court date that they weren't appointed as the personal representative yet, and the paper and the information I had said they were the personal representative, but they said they weren't appointed yet. So I was a little confused by that.
Yeah. So what happens is when someone is named in a will, or if there wasn't a will, they meet with the probate clerk. The probate clerk will appoint or will designate a personal representative. Now, that has to be confirmed in court. So at the initial probate hearing, they'll give the public a chance to object. So, John Doe is appointed as the administrator of this estate. Does anyone object? 99 times out of 100, nobody does. And that, at that point, they have the authority to administer the estate. So there's a short period between when probate was filed and the initial hearing. I've actually never talked to anyone who wasn't appointed, and I can't remember everyone that we've coached, I can't remember anyone that's actually uncovered that. So the vast majority of the time, they are already going to be past that initial hearing. So they will have the authority.
Okay.
Kind of like at a wedding. Does anybody object to this union? I mean, never heard anybody object at a wedding. Same type of thing. You're saying it's just a formality. It just hasn't been finalized yet, correct?
Yep. Yeah. And
yep.
You do hear an objection. It's usually some family member that got cut out of the will, and at that point, the court will step in and go, you know what? Neither of you are going to administer the estate. The fiduciary is. And that's a lot of times how the fiduciary gets appointed. Either, the less common scenario is there was no family. The more common scenario is the family wasn't civil. So in order to get the estate probated, the judge stepped in and said, nope, we're going to have a public official do this. So it's not often that you'll uncover that.
Okay.
Excellent. Amy, I hope that helps. And if you need any additional coaching, anything, anytime, send an email to support, and Chad will go back to you, and he'll personalize your approach a little bit more to make sure you're successful. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for participating. Appreciate it. We have 2 more people in the queue. We have plenty of room for more. The next up is phone number ending in 7756. You're up next.
Oh, hi there. So this is Sonia, and I just got all the leads in December. So
welcome.
around I think the 27th or somewhere around there, I got the initial leads. So I decided to sign up for the ISA.
Great.
And I have not started the letters yet. I'm working on that. My question is with regards to the ISA, and that is, so I signed up, I think around the end of December, beginning, and then the calls were supposed to be made on January 4th or starting there. However, I barely just spoke to Brandon, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, and I'm checking so my understanding is I go in to check my leads, and there should be some notes there on any calls made. However, I haven't seen anything that would indicate that any calls have been made.
So what we normally do is try to time your phone calls with your letters. Are you saying that you ordered them both together?
So no, I'm working on, I did speak to Brandon about that. So, because I haven't done the letters yet, but he said he was going to go ahead and make the calls. So I haven't edited my letters yet. So
what should be happening is so you basically said go ahead and make the calls. I'll work on the letters myself.
I'm just editing my letters a little bit to gear toward me, and then I'm going to do that with you guys. I'm not doing it myself.
Okay, but you wanted them to put the call before the letter anyway, right?
Well, just because I've already paid for it, and I'm figuring I've already paid for the leads now in December, and here we are almost mid-January, and nobody's been called. So I'm like freaking out, thinking, the sooner I get the calls made, the better, at least. And then if the letters come after, oh well. Like,
When did you get your leads?
December 20th, or 27th, something like that.
Okay.
Yep.
And had you been working on your letter before that as well, or are you working on it now?
No. So, no, I was trying to figure it out. I've been going through the stuff on, first of all, you guys really are, the customer service has been phenomenal. Every time I've called support and asked this and asked that, I'm still trying to navigate my way, and there's so many resources on your website, and of course everybody else on your team has been fantastic. So I was just still, even today, looking at when I took your mastery probate thing certification. So I was looking back to figure out how to do the letters. So now I see what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm figuring that, but I wanted the phone calls made just, because in case I got something, I could just, get my foot in the door with a lead if somebody, was interested.
I understand you're just trying to monetize what you bought already, and
exactly.
low-hanging fruit, hopefully get it picked.
Exactly. Yep. And
to your question, there's
mm-hmm.
two possibilities. One is that your calls have been made and someone missed sending you your report and putting the notes in your CRM. Two,
yeah, I haven't seen anything come up. Yeah.
Okay. What we'll do is could you send an email to support at all the leads with your information and what list it was, and we will get with Brandon immediately after this call and make sure that if your campaign hasn't started, it starts today.
Yeah, and he did call me, but I just still haven't seen anything, so I'm getting a little anxious. So
how long ago did you speak with Brandon?
I don't think it was yesterday. Hold on. I think it was the day before. So it was like 2 days ago.
Oh, well, so then everything is probably in process the way it should be. Here's what they do. They don't do them, they have a dialing system that they're working in, so they make sure that they complete your list. They're not doing it interactively. Every person that they call, they don't immediately make an entry. They're bulking the data in, so that if you only talked to him a couple of days ago, he's probably just calling it and maybe hasn't completed the list yet. And as soon as he does, he'll post the entire thing all at once. And we'll check and make sure, but I suspect that's what happened.
Okay. And then my next question is, so I'm same with Amy, although if it's the Amy that I think it is, she's in Orange County and I'm here in Los Angeles. And I don't have a lot of leads as well, and it's highly competitive, and I know that, I'm sure agents are making calls. It's the same thing. I only have like 58 leads. So that's not a lot comparatively to some of the other, counties that I'm hearing, where they're getting a couple hundred or 100 and something. It's not a lot. So, I was listening to Chad's video on how long you need to try it, and, I understand that whole system has to kind of be in place, the letters, the calls, and but my concern is the length of time. Again, I got the leads in mid-December, and now they're not being called till like, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball with the calling. So with the ISA, are the calls typically going to be made like right when my leads come up? If I've got them on.
Here's the way this is. Yeah, here's the reason that you're kind of behind the 8 ball is that you got your leads, and we just introduced the ISA program, so they could only start, once you kind of enabled them to do that. But what you need to do is get your system set up on autopilot so that the day that your leads are available and in the system, your letters get printed and go out. If it's on autopilot, they go out the same day, and 2 to 3 days later, depending on your market, the ISA calls will start being made, and it happens automatically. And that's as quick as you can get to it, and the best way to do it.
All right, so I did put the ISA on auto, so that'll get going. Just my letters, and that is my next question. Sure. With the letters. How long does it take once I get it together and finish my part of it, and I say to you guys to do the letters? How long does that? Like, for example, I'm wondering if it's too late for me to start the letters for my December leads. Should I just wait till January?
I would not. You should always get your letters out. You never know what people are going to respond to. That's the purpose of putting them out. And the answer is, from a turnaround standpoint, is if it's in the queue today, it'll either go out today or it'll go out tomorrow. It's a 24-hour turnaround.
Oh, okay, so it's that quick. Okay, got it.
Right. If it's done, and you've approved the proof, it will go out within 24 hours on business days.
All right. And
Yeah,
then
the other thing
Uh-huh.
the other thing I just wanted to share real quick that I always share with our customers, these leads season well. A vast majority of these people have been told by their attorney, you're not going to be able to sell the property for at least a few months. So it's not like they're rushing out and checking with other realtors. We hear from agents all the time that they'll start a campaign in January and they'll start getting responses on it in March, April, May. Sometimes the older leads are just as productive as the new ones. So don't automatically assume this isn't like FSBOs or expireds where they're going to list within 10 days or 2 weeks. Most of these people are sitting on their hands for at least a few months. They season well, and they're still going to be good leads if you send the letters and you make the phone calls a few weeks later. It isn't going to make an appreciable difference for the most part, even in a competitive market. So go ahead, and you had a follow-up question?
Yeah. So then my next thing I'm trying to figure out, I see that you guys on the website. Gosh, it's such a great website. It's so many resources. But you do say you recommend a letter one, a call, and then another letter, right?
Right. 3 letters followed by 3 phone calls 30 days apart is the ideal, that seems to be the ideal success rate system for getting the best results.
And then Chad was saying in terms of giving this, I'm a little nervous because it is a lot of money and all that kind of thing. So, but he's saying to give it at least, from what I could look at his rate of return, that all that kind of stuff is giving it at least like 3 months, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other reason for that, as part of that, the reasoning behind that is we know that these lists, it takes some people time to make the decision to move forward. It takes them time to, deal with it emotionally where they're like, okay, we've got to do this. Even though they filed probate, sometimes people are still in the probate quicksand. And so that's why it's, the content of the letters is less important than the presence of the letters. Like having it there at the right time is more important than having it say the perfect thing. And that's why we stretched the campaign out to over a 3-month period. Now, in a perfect world where we all had a massive marketing budget, I would say you should mail them 12 letters. But that gets, that's not really sustainable for many people because we're running at month 3, you're paying for 3 sets of mail. So if you did that a year in, you would be paying for 12 mailings a month. So it's the more touches the better because we have, dozens upon dozens of stories of people listing 6, 12, 18, 24 months. One of the listings that our ISA has gotten was all the way back at 18 months on a list that's just been sitting there, never been called, and 18 months ago someone filed probate and still hadn't made a move on the house. But when the ISA called, it kind of pulled them out of that probate quicksand. They made a move. Our agent went out and listed the house. And I've got tons of stories like that from my own business. So that's part of the reason we stretch the campaign out. And I get where that sense of urgency comes from because with internet leads and with FSBO and with expired, we're all conditioned to think, holy shit, I've got 5 minutes.
Right.
If I have to call them in 5 minutes, or there's an 80% chance they'll never do business with me. And this is an apple, that's an orange. So just try to keep that in mind. And we have a lot of people buy historical data. So they'll sign up and say, okay, well, while I'm waiting on my list to come, have you ever pulled leads there before? And we'll go back in time. Hell, some people go back and buy a year's worth of leads, and back in time. And they always pull listings out of those, always. I think every person that does it probably signs a listing. So there's a lot of value in that. Even though it might be a few weeks old, don't discount your list. It may be even better. And one of the things we've considered is actually going back in time, scrubbing the old probates for real estate owned using our Probate Plus system that we haven't quite introduced yet, and actually selling seasoned probate. So just for example, we go back 6 months, 6 to 12 months, scrub everything and say, show me the ones where the real estate has real estate and it hasn't transferred, because that's an even more motivated list. They've been 6 to 12 months and they still haven't done anything. They still have the real estate. So we're still perfecting that system. But just to show you, we see the value in that because of our experience. I just want you to understand that you know, we believe that these are good for up to a year in most cases.
Yeah, and that makes sense what you said about them. It kind of hit home where you said they might not do something right now. So even like it might take them 3 months to kind of, obviously they've lost someone, so they won't necessarily jump on, oh my God, I got to do something right now. It might take them a month.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. That makes sense.
And by the way, anybody on the call that wants historical data, we can usually give you, if we have it, we can go back as far as a year or longer, and the older leads are much, much cheaper. You know, it's just a little bit of a work on our part to pull them up and update them and make sure the phone numbers are good and send them off to you. So if anybody has an interest in getting historical, again, just reach out to support at all the leads. We'll see if they're available, and, you know, we'll give you a price for your county if you want to go farther back. Not to belabor the point, but maybe 3-4 calls ago, we had a gentleman who was with us for a month. And a year later, he got a call, and it was a huge commission. It was about a $30,000 commission. He tried it for a month and quit because he didn't get anything. And a year later, he got a deal. He had his assistant go back and call all the year-old leads and got 3 more listings. So obviously he came back. So yeah, this is, like Chad said, this is apples and oranges to most lead sources. A lot of the assumptions you make from working BizBos and expireds are the polar opposite with probate. So
it reminds me of the thing that happens.
What's that?
I was going to say the thing that also happens. You mentioned seasoning, and you know, again, we'll go back to the folks from Southern California and live there as well. I'm sure that people are getting barraged with phone calls. They're getting that one time. In most cases, that's one phone call. People are trying to pick low-hanging fruit, and if they don't get an immediate response, they're done. They don't bother with them again. They don't write. They don't call. They don't do anything. And if you come back to that same list, now you're the one of all of them who followed up again. And you know, you come back 90 days from that to that same group of people. You may be the only person that they hear about. You're the most diligent person on the planet. You're working it really, really hard. You've already differentiated yourself from everybody else just by being diligent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This conversation, I want to tell you this story just because it's just an example of another super competitive market. Believe it or not, probably the most competitive market I know of in the country, and having coached a lot of people from all areas, is like Colorado. It's fierce because of the investors. We had a subscriber there who he's paid for real estate coaching for the last 20 years. He's a tenacious prospector, and he tracks every phone call. He had been with us for 3 months, and he hadn't gotten a single listing. We were finding that about 65% of his list had already listed, or they had sold prior to the death. And he pretty much said, you know, I told him, like, man, it's like, we're not going to keep doing the same things with the same result. Like, let's just take a break. He suspended his subscription and decided a month later, you know what, I'm just going to make one more round of calls. So on the list that was 4 months old, he pulled 6 listings out of that market. And he called us back and signed up immediately. He said, turn me back on. It was about, you know, sure, 65% of them used some else or sold to an investor. But the ones that were left in there that hadn't sold at that 4-month mark responded to his marketing completely different than they did at the 1-month mark or the 2-month mark. And we've got tons of stories like this, but he was able to pull 6 listings off of leads he had already paid for months ago. So I just wanted to share that story. That was another one that came to mind.
Excellent. We have 2 more people in the queue, and I don't want to cut you off, but does that help, Sonia? Do you have any other follow-up questions?
Yeah, just real quick. So I should be waiting until the ISA makes initial contact before I call them, right? Just, is that?
Yeah, just
okay.
to make sure that you know, you have consistency in your campaign. So what they're going to do, they're going to call, and they'll call and gauge interest, and then they'll set appointments for you. For the ones that are interested and ready, they'll go ahead and set the follow-up appointment by phone.
All right.
And then you can pick up from there.
All right.
All right. Great questions. Thank you. And please keep coming back when you start to list these properties and let us know how you're doing.
Of course.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Next up is phone number ending in 7334. You're up next.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Two quick
Sure.
questions. One, on the leads that you provide, do you bypass the ones that don't show property and only provide the ones that do, or do you just send all of the probate leads?
We are all the leads, man. Come on. Right now we're pulling every probate in your county courthouse each month. A couple of reasons. One, like it's because we have to have consistency in our data, and every courthouse records a little bit differently. That's how we started doing it. As I said earlier in the call, we're working on a program called Probate Plus, where we can look at real estate records in every county in the United States and pull out property they own anywhere. The reason that hasn't been introduced to you guys yet is we're getting about 20% false positives. So if there's 100, if there's 100 that own real estate on the list, 80 of them really do, but we're still getting like 20% that somehow, we're getting false positives from our data. So we haven't introduced it. That's something we will likely do this year, and we'll have that program. But for right now, we're pulling every probate in your county. And we know that about 78% of them own real estate. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all going to sell, but the vast majority will, and it will happen in the first 6 to 12 months.
And that's kind of the point about automating the process, is that it's a numbers game, and we realize that. And what we don't want to do is have anyone be stuck not following up because it's too much volume to go deal with, which is why we've automated both the mailing and the calling process, part of this, to make this work, to winnow this down to the right level. And the other thing to remember is that the way our system is built, once you've made that initial call, if there's no interest and you want to flag them out for future reference, you flag them out, and then the next time you do mailing, let's say the first month you have 100 in one group, the next month that may be down to 30, and the end month it may be only 5 of them. You're continuing to actively prospect because those are the ones that you've established one way or another you really want to continue to market to.
Okay.
All right. As
you.
Chad said, we're always working on improvements and new products, and we're finally kind of at a critical point here. We have at least 6 really exciting enhancements and new products that we're hoping to roll out by the next quarter and the next year. So keep coming back to these calls. Anytime we have something new like the ISA service or Probate Plus, we'll always introduce it here first to the people that come on these calls. So you'll always have first shot at it. Did you, and I think you said you had 2 quick questions. Did you have a follow-up question, or was that it?
Yeah, kind of a practical thing here. If I contact a client and they say, oh, yes, I have a property that I'm thinking about selling, or it's got some problems and I'm not sure what to do, what's the next step once you've identified them as wanting some help? Do you directly work with them, or do you contact their attorney, or have them contact their attorney to insert you into the process? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You definitely
you
want to
listed
take control.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
I think we're going to say the same thing. You definitely want to take control of the process, get your listing agreement signed, and then it's a really good way to introduce yourself to the attorney. Hey, I just spoke with Paul Jones, and we listed his property at 123 Elm. Before I upload this to MLS, I wanted to introduce myself and just make sure there isn't anything that you want to see specifically in the listing, and what can I do to really make this better for all of us. And show them that you're not going to be a thorn in their side like probably most agents in their past have been. Show them that you're going to be proactive and you're trying to make this a smooth transaction for the family and for the attorney's office. And that goes a long way, and you'll probably do a lot of business with that attorney in the future. But
another good question to ask you. Yeah. Ask the attorney also, when do you anticipate the probate being completed, so you can give the potential buyers a heads up, and the buyer's agents, let them know what kind of a closing date to put on the contract, or at least let them know approximately when it's expected to be completed. But yeah, great point, Chad. Great point to gain that attorney's confidence and get future business from them. Make sense?
So most of these folks, they know, the executors, they know that they can just begin to work with you if that's their plan, or do they typically feel like, well, I need to check with my attorney, or he's usually doing all this stuff, so is it all over the map with that, or?
No, a common response that we hear is the attorney tells them not to do anything. And that's one of the common objections as well. Our attorney told us not to, that he would be in touch when it was time to sell the house. And the reason for that, in speaking with attorneys, some of which have been on this call, is that they usually have to babysit or tolerate real estate agents who aren't professional. And in the past, it has just complicated the issue and made their work even harder. They're working for a base rate, not a billable hour. This person's calling saying, hey, this is under contract. When's it closing? When's it closing? I got kids in college. I got to blah, blah, blah. And they're more focused on the commission check than they are the transaction and the people in it. And that's been the experience of a lot of probate attorneys. So by default, they usually just tell people, you know what, I'll tell you when we're ready. But, and I have this conversation often, like it's hard to, it's very seldom will you see a case where it's in the family's best interest to do nothing, to let a house sit vacant, full of property, and just sit there and wait. There's, if you proactively get the house emptied out, get it in its best showable condition, get it on the market, get it under contract contingent on the probate court approval, and take a good, solid market value offer into the court, how is that not in the family's best interest to go ahead and liquidate the most valuable asset in the estate so you can settle the liabilities? How is that not in the attorney's best interest to get that done? And they know this, but they don't have the confidence in real estate agents that they can actually do that in a professional way. So they just say, you know what, just wait. I'll tell you when you're ready. That way they don't have to deal with an agent who's saying, hey, when is this closing? When is this closing? When is this closing? But we've coached hundreds of people to do this who have heard that objection, and it's pretty easy to roll over. Like once you show them just, whatever it's time of year, market conditions, interest rates, insert solid reason here, but think of the reasons that it's in their best interest to go ahead and get the home on the market, and just say, listen, most of our clients say the same thing. They didn't quite understand when you're drinking from a fire hose here with all this new information. And what most of our clients didn't understand is the attorney said just wait, but they don't understand they can get the house on the market if it's in their best interest, and we can kind of expedite the process for you. So
a really good question. Yeah, really good question. I was going to say to ask him on the first call if you hear that is, oh, really? Did you want to be closing in April, or just getting started at that time? And then just shut up. Well, what do you mean? Well, I mean, there's a good chance we can get it on the market. Do our inspections, grab a buyer, get financing, and by the time the probate's done, we can be ready to close. Did you want to do that, or you just want to be getting started in April and maybe close, July or August? And most of them have no clue that that's an option. So that's kind of your call to action on the first call to make them aware of that.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, and you also brought up a point that I actually had in the back of my mind. You said once you get it listed, help them with these things. And I was kind of wondering about that. Do I talk to them about these various services I can provide with them and actually do some of those, get started, and then at some point down the line get an agreement signed, but actually as soon as you start talking with them and they let you know what they want, then you say, okay, great, well, let's go ahead and get the agreement signed for the home, and then we can get started on all these other things.
So there's a really subtle way to get listings without ever having to ask. And you start with target date, just like Jim said. So in a perfect world, when would you guys want to be, divvying up the money among the family members? Okay, well, I think that's a realistic date. So let's start there. In order to do that, I think we need to have it under contract by this date. And in order to do that, I think we need to have it in MLS on this date. In order to do that, it needs to be staged and photography done on this date. So that brings us back to today. It really starts right here. If you just sign right there, I'll go ahead and get started. And all these things like estate sale, staging, photography, uploading an MLS, getting it under contract, getting it to the court for approval, and getting to the through the inspection, you can use that target date and just walk your way back and then hand them a pen, and they will sign it every time. I've never asked for a listing, period. Because when they see the value and they see the strategy, like when you're that clear on what you're going to do for them, there's no objections left. They just sign.
Okay.
And the first step, you don't sound like you're a customer. Give us a call and we'll get you signed up. That's where you got to start. I mean, you're not a current subscriber now, correct?
Right.
Yeah, I could just tell by your questions, and that's fine. I mean, we appreciate your participation. But I mean, does that help? Did that pretty well answer your questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. We have one more person in the queue, and that's probably perfect timing. We got two, so we got plenty of time for both of you. Next up is phone number ending in 9099. You're up.
Yes, I'm a new subscriber, and I've been making calls and sending out letters and so forth. And looking at some of the real estate that's in the probate record, it's already sold, and I'm in Colorado, as one of the guys had said. It's a competitive market, but it's already sold before the probate was even filed. And curious on that, is it good to still reach out to that personal rep if there's other, real estate in the estate?
And Chad, before you answer that, I was just talking to a guy this morning and who asked me, how does that help happen? There are some markets where the investors are so aggressive they call on death certificates, and we've looked at doing that and we just don't feel comfortable doing it. It is kind of being a vulture, and maybe in the future we'll find a subtle way to make that possible. But, in highly competitive markets, you're going to have a very small percentage of them where somebody reached out as soon as they died, got in touch, and got it under contract before the probate was filed. So that's how that happens. And then, Chad, I'm sorry, I'll let you respond.
Well, it's in any market. I'm guessing about a quarter of homeowners, when people go into long-term care, and the rest of the family already has their own real estate, it's very common for the primary residence to sell, so you free up money. Like, in order to get long-term care paid for, most people don't have long-term care insurance. And in order for that to be paid for, you've got to liquidate assets. So a lot of families will sell that, prior to the death. But what we find in Colorado is people are doing the obituaries. So they pull obituaries and they skip trace to get phone numbers. And they're very aggressively pursuing these people. What I would say, though, regardless, is the average inheritance in the U.S. last year was $157,000. And many, many people own more than one piece of real estate. And there's a lot of different ways you can help people on this list, and you can monetize your service. So if you have the time and the bandwidth, you know a few things about these people. They've been through a really they're currently going through a really stressful time. They either have or are about to get a windfall of cash. And you're in a position as a professional to offer a lot of different services. Some of those would be helping them get their current home on the market and upgrade to a larger home now that they have money for a down payment, or maybe for a cash purchase. Helping them build a rental portfolio because the Colorado rental market's so strong right now. So if you feel comfortable with it, you can reach out to these folks and help them set up a plan for the future so they never have to go through probate again. You can help them turn them into buyers and help them, upgrade their home. You can even call and turn them into private lenders for your cash buyers. Hey, listen, I've got a guy who's looking to raise, $3 million. He's trying to buy homes here in our market. He wants, 50 LTV, so there's really no risk. He's buying it, at wholesale prices. If I could show you a way to invest the proceeds from the probate, from the estate, and make a 10 to 12% return, is that something you would be interested in? So you can turn these folks into private lenders and raise capital for your investors, so you can get more transactions from the investor side. There's a lot of different ways you can monetize these. You just got to look at kind of your business setup and how much time you have to do that. Are you just looking for listings, or are you looking for ways to monetize your professional service in general?
Okay.
Excellent, Chad. It just occurred to me that Chad did a great speech at a convention yesterday called Blue Ocean Strategy, and once we get that recording and post it, we'll have to tell everybody where to go to see that. 10 different examples of situations like that where you can work in very untapped markets and ideas that most people aren't thinking of to get more business. So go ahead. One more question you had?
Yeah. So when you list the docket number, is there a way to research that docket in the county court system? And I'm finding a lot of the numbers are either wrong numbers, disconnected. It's the wrong person. Even though it's listed that they live in a certain city, they're not even associated with this probate case.
Now, are you one of our? You're not one of our subscribers then, correct?
I am a subscriber. I just joined. I've gotten two leads files sent to me, and I've been going through them, and I'm just finding that out that some of the information's a little off, and I was wondering if I could research the docket itself to find out, maybe the personal rep had an email or some other phone numbers on there that I could research.
The only information that doesn't come from the court that should be the court information should be virtually 100% accurate. Now, we give you multiple phone numbers. Sometimes the third or fourth phone number might be somebody with a similar name, somebody at a similar address, or it might be a former phone number for that person. So is that what you're finding? Are you calling all 3 or 4 of the phone numbers that we give you?
Yes. Yeah. And it's not every file. It's like 1 out of every maybe 6 files, something like that. Things will kind of go haywire. I was just wondering if there's a way to research the docket number. Is that public record, or is that something they hold close to the heart on the court?
No, it is, but you would have to go to the courthouse to pull to do the research.
So it's a lot.
You're probably going to find the same information that we provided, and that's what Jim said. So there's not much error in the public information, and through the last couple of months calling with our ISAs, we were, frankly, I was surprised that we're getting on a day-to-day basis between 95 and 98% correct phone numbers, which is higher than we ever promised or expected. So it's surprising that you're finding 1 in 6 is not reaching the subject person. It's not a perfect science, obviously. But we're probably the best in the country at it. But so what you're not going to, if phone numbers and email addresses and all that were recorded at the county courthouse, we would pull that for you. But what you're probably going to find is the same information that our researchers found when they were there. If you go to do that. So I know that's not a great answer, but you're at that point, like if the phone number's not reaching them, you're kind of relying on your direct mail campaign at that point.
Okay, thank you for that. And then one last question. If there's no attorney listed, what does that mean? It seems like I've had 40 leads sent, and I have 4 attorneys, and the rest are no attorneys on that lead list.
So that's known as pro se. It means that they've either rejected an attorney and they're administering the estate on their own, or they hadn't selected an attorney at the time of recording. In states like Virginia, where I'm, in my market, 100% of them do it pro se, with the exception of a few counties up north. It can actually be better because you're dealing with one decision maker and one, they are the single point of contact, so it can actually be more efficient that way. The attorneys don't usually work against real estate professionals, but they do say things like, we'll let you know when it's time to sell the house, like we talked about earlier in this conversation, where if they are the sole decision maker and have full authority, then a lot of times it's just a more efficient process from a real estate standpoint.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We have one more person in the queue. We're going to go a little bit over an hour today, guys. We never leave a question unanswered. And this will be our last caller for today. Phone number ending in 3469. You're up next.
Okay. So
you're up last.
From the last call.
We saved the best for last.
From the last call, it appeared that some of my question was answered because I was wondering, you touched on cash buyers and investors. My question was, how quick do most personal representatives want to close, go to closing? And then, like, when they do go to closing, the question is more like, do they want to use cash buyers? Are they looking to go ahead and list the property? Like, are they wanting to close when they list? Are they in a hurry to close, or are they willing to just sit around and wait for their listing to close in 3 or 4 months on the MLS?
Yes. you're gonna uncover, I mean, everything you said. So you're gonna uncover people that have different motivations, different timelines, different scenarios. These probate deals are like thumbprints. Almost no two are the same. So some people are going to want to sell immediately, and they'll sell to an investor and give up 40% of their equity just to get this off their plate. While other people will wait 2 or 3 months and demand the market, full market, retail market value. And other people will stick their head in the sand and they won't do a damn thing for a year. And that's why, earlier in this conversation, we kind of talked about lists being valuable for more than a week, unlike a lot of lead types. That's why all those variables is what kind of makes this a unique lead source that you can work for months and months and still be able to pull business out of it. And some of that business will be for your cash buyers. Some of it will be for conventional listings. Some of it might even be, opportunities to upgrade homes and sell them for top retail dollar. And that's why we teach you to have a broad scope of service yourself. Make sure your offer kind of encompasses a service that can cover all those different scenarios. And then you focus on their goals and what their challenges are before you make a suggestion. Like most things in life, like I want to know my outcome first before I take action. But with probate listings, I try not to know my outcome. I try to focus on knowing their outcome and then how I can bring that to them. So it's once I find out what their challenges are, what their motivation is, and what their goals are, then I can say, oh, well, I can get you from A to B by doing this. So it really starts with, reaching out and asking them that question. Do you want to sell quickly? Do you want to get top dollar? Do you want to sell it all? Would you like to turn this into a rental property? Just be a good listener, ask good questions, and find out how you can help.
Well said. And if you're a person that just wants statistics, in this is just anecdotal, but in my own experience and from talking to agents around the country, probably 10% or less of these people, around 10%, have some compelling urgency where they need to sell right away. The other 90% want a list, but very, very, very few of them want top dollar. The other 90% that list they're not in an urgent hurry, but it's found money. They realize that, the property may not be in perfect condition, and they're really willing to sell at a pretty good price. That's why a lot of our agents, we've heard over the last few years that a lot of our agents will sit on the listing for a week or two before they put it in the MLS and try to sell it themselves because, even the ones that list, they're usually willing to put it at a price good enough that it's easy to find a buyer. So a very, very small percentage of them want top dollar. And most of them, if the roof's fallen in, well, that's an investor deal. But most of them, even if there's a little deferred maintenance, they're financeable. So, you don't necessarily need a cash buyer unless there's some extreme urgency. It's just a regular transaction, with a motivated seller, and maybe there's a little bit of, cosmetic stuff that needs to be done. That's probably your typical transaction. But like Chad said, they're all different. So, find out what they want and, and help them get it. That's the goal. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. Great call, guys. Our record call. It's our longest ever. I really appreciate the patience of everybody. Virtually everybody hung into the end. And you guys know what I'm going to say next. I always end these calls the same way by thanking y'all for being here. You took over an hour out of your life, out of your scheduled day to be here. And I want to challenge everybody. You heard some really great ideas, some good thoughts, some good stories. Take one idea, one thought, one thing you learned on today's call, go out and put it into practice and come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Thank you so much, guys. Make it a great week. We'll talk to you same time next Thursday.